Welcome to the Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Hello, Patrick Dunaway here, news editor with the Irish Farmers Journal. On Saturday last, at the Mayo IFA 60th anniversary celebrations, I interviewed Taoiseach Enda Kenny, and I started by asking him, is there a need for a coupled support for the suckler herd?
Well, it's obviously always had an important part to play in the development of the agri-economy from the west of Ireland point of view, and we want that to continue. Clearly, a rural development programme is an important issue, and that's part of that. So while obviously elements within the agri-sector are always cyclical in nature, sucklers have been an important part, and we want that to continue.
Next, I spoke to Taoiseach about climate change, and he didn't hide the enormity of the challenges that lie ahead for Ireland and the Irish agriculture sector.
My view is that the targets that were set for Ireland for 2020 were based on inadequate scientific analysis, and were you to continue those targets and move on from those to 2030, it would make it impossible for us to meet that. I've spelled this out to the European Council already. The fines involved from 2020 to 2030 would be of the order of 5 billion. So we can't afford to have a situation where we have completely unrealistic targets. And that's why the Council of Europe gave me their support last year in being realistic in terms of bringing in forestry and so on like that, to make it somewhat easier for us to achieve targets. But we still have a big battle ahead.
And now I'm joined by news correspondent with the Irish Farmers Journal, Pat O'Toole. Pat, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Pat, some startling figures there. €5 billion worth of fines if targets are rolled on from 2020 to 2030 in terms of carbon reduction. What exactly does Taoiseach mean by this?
Everyone knows about the Kyoto Protocol, which was agreed in the 1980s, and it set targets of reductions for 2012. We had to reduce on our 1990 limits by 13%, but the EU agreed to a far more stringent reduction in climate change emissions, and from 2005 to 2020 we have to reduce our total emissions by 20%, and that's a very significant target. You've got to remember that the economy was at peak in 2005, and we've had a significant reduction in transport and in industry since then. But against that, agriculture has moved forward, and if we're going to meet the targets in Food Harvest 2020 and expand our dairy herd as envisaged with the removal of quotas, following 30 years of being hamstrung by quotas, we're going to have to find a way to do it in a carbon efficient manner to stay within those limits or face these huge fines.
Later on in the interview, Pat, Taoiseach said that there's a big battle ahead for Irish agriculture and Ireland as a whole, ahead of a United Nations meeting in December where legally binding climate change targets will be met. What exactly does Taoiseach mean by a big battle ahead?
Well, when he talks about rolling over the current targets, that would mean that we would try to achieve a similar level of reduction in the decade between 2020 and 2030. If that were to happen, it would bite into what agriculture is doing. What people are calling the low-hanging fruit have been attacked already, and the reductions achieved so far have been easier than any reductions we will achieve in the future. What has happened so far is that we've established the principle of the necessity for food security to be placed alongside emission reduction as a priority for mankind and within Europe. Ireland did that. And the current Commissioner, Phil Hogan, the current Irish Commissioner and the current Agriculture Commissioner, was the man who set that agenda as Ireland's Environment Minister. The problem is, that's fine in principle, but we have to put flesh on that. What kind of targets and limits does that result in? And for a country like Ireland, which is relatively carbon efficient, in other words, we produce food with less output than other countries. How do we take advantage of that and get other countries to allow us to move on with doing what we do best? And if that happens, we should be able to marry both meeting our climate change obligations and producing food for an estimated 50 million people by 2040.
Pat, when you say low-hanging fruit has been picked, a report earlier this year from the European Commission, or on behalf of the European Commission, suggested that one of the ways that we reduce our climate change targets is by a reduction in the overall beef herd, perhaps up to as far as 30% in overall reduction in the herd. Is something like that too draconian, or is there other ways around it rather than just, culling suckler cow numbers?
Well, this is the kind of proposal that was being floated by the previous Green government, which was one of the reasons why they fell. It would achieve, obviously, but you could just as easily say take 40% of the cars off the road, make everyone drive electric cars. The reality is that we are better at producing beef with a low carbon output than other countries. If you reduce beef production in Ireland, it will increase elsewhere to fulfil the consumer demand for food, and you will increase the net global emissions from agriculture. So that's a bad outcome. That's called carbon leakage, and that's why we have to fight this. The European Commission knows this, and what they're doing is they're establishing their position in advance of the battle Enda Kenny talked about. It should be stressed that that did not come from DG Agri, but from the Environmental Department of the Commission. And there's lack of agreement between climate change, environment, agriculture, transport, industry within the Cabinet Commission. So even within Brussels, there's a big battle on climate change.
Pat, thanks very much. And for more on our exclusive interview with Taoiseach Enda Kenny, you can visit www.farmersjournal.ie and the Irish Farmers Journal this Thursday.
You're listening to the Irish Farmers Journal podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
And preparing Irish farming for climate change doesn't have to be overly complicated. At the Agricultural Science Association's conference on Friday last, Pádraig Brennan, who is in charge of sustainability at Bord Bia, said that we should start having a positive discussion about climate change. My colleague Odile Evans asked him what he meant by this.
I think if you look at all the facts and figures that have been published already from a carbon efficiency point of view, the Irish farming system actually performs very, very well. And I suppose the other side you have to look at that's an average position. Within that, there's a lot of variation, and some farmers are doing things even a lot better than the average. And for us, that's the opportunity. What can we learn from the practices and the technologies that those farmers that are in the top 20 or 25% of performers are using or embracing on their farm? How can other farmers learn from that? If we can get that type of practice and technology adopted, then we're going to see a lot of improvement nationally as well. So I think if we focus on the potential utilising existing technologies and practices that are there, it's a great starting point for us to work from.
Okay, and I suppose you see this moving out then to the knowledge transfer programmes. Now, would that be how you'd see the model
Absolutely.
work?
I think anybody that's been involved in this work will tell you very clearly, farmers learn best from other farmers. So that whole knowledge transfer network, that discussion group format, that's probably the most effective way, because people talking to people, seeing things actually being implemented on the ground in real life, that's how you get the impact, that's how you get the engagement, because otherwise you can feel a little bit alien or it wouldn't work on my farm sort of approach. Whereas if you can see it actually on the ground working, then farmers can make a real decision on whether it's something that's appropriate for them or whether it's something that they need to think about and invest in a little bit further. So I think people on the ground using that discussion group network are absolutely key.
Thank you very much.
We hope that you're enjoying this Irish Farmers Journal podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy. Find out more at farmersjournal.ie.
This time next week, we'll all be at the National Ploughing Championships in Ratheniska, County Laois. One of the many events organised by the Irish Farmers Journal there is the Innovation Arena, where companies and individuals will compete to convince the judges that their invention is the best business idea to meet the needs of farmers. My colleague Thomas Hubert asked machinery editor James Maloney how the contest will unfold.
This competition has been going on for 3 years. It's the third year of it, and the format is that every year any person who has an innovative idea or company can apply online and make a submission. We've had over 100 submissions online to Enterprise Ireland, and then the judging panel meets and we make a shortlist, because unfortunately the ploughing and space and size, we'd love to bring 100 people to the ploughing, but we can only offer it to so many people, so we select 50 entries roughly. On that then, we have a wild card week, for some reason that you might have been on holidays or some person might have had an innovation that they didn't think was good enough or they hadn't had finished on time. There's normally a wild card chance during the summer as well for people to come in. There has been fantastic interest in it this year. It's probably helped by the fact that the prize fund has increased to 65,000, which is €15,000 up on last year. We've also added 2 new categories, a student award and a junior award, or an under 18 award for innovation. It's kind of good at this level because you get the young minds thinking about straight away how to bring what their thoughts are onto a national level at the ploughing, which is a fantastic opportunity for them to display it.
We're talking about not only directly innovations in farming, it goes right across anything you could do in the countryside with your business and inventing new machines and business formats and all that.
Yeah, definitely, Thomas. And there's some of the innovations here that could cost €200, and there's more of the innovations, and they probably cost thousands with R&D. But it's amazing. Every innovation is born out of a need to solve a problem. And what we see here is that there's a trend towards farm safety and the innovations this year. There's how safe we're making systems on farms, and particularly a couple of entrants in have focused on educating the younger generation by board games and books, which is great to see that they're tackling the next generation for a safety problem on farms. Other companies then have seen need to fill a market for a machine. So we have Malone Engineering in there with a shake and rake tether. We have Samco, well-established company, in with another machine. So them companies would have been funded by Enterprise Ireland. So they're continuing on their growth and their innovative spark. And hopefully it creates a great opportunity for them.
So they come to the ploughing, they pitch to this panel of experts, Dragon Den style really, and is that held in public? Can people see what's happening and feel the heat with the contestants?
Yeah, it's kind of like a goldfish bowl scenario. It's behind a glass panel in the innovation arena. We have 3 dragons or 3 panel judges, all from the industry. They'll put them through their paces. It's a separate competition to the innovation. I just want to make that clear, because the innovation award is awarded, but there's also an award for the best pitch, and it's €1,000 of a prize fund. So again, it's how well you can pitch your idea or concept to this panel, and they're marked then. And look, the overall winner of the innovation award could win the pitch as well. So we don't know that, but that has been shortlisted. There was 20 of the applicants. They were given the chance to go for the pitch, and 8 of them qualified. So that was another shortlisting process, and they were given some training by Gavin Duffy.
So that's it. It's not only the money. You win these awards, and then you get a chance to stay in touch with all the experts around you and get some help and develop your idea.
Yeah, I'd say the money is only a small part of it. It's the mentoring and the opportunity to grow your business. If we get 5,000 or 10,000, that's a very... well, and not say it's a small amount of money, but if people are thinking of bigger plans, it's the open of the markets, it's the chance for promotion, and it's the potential to make hundreds of thousands. That's the kind of lure for this competition.
Now, this is happening at the ploughing this year. How can you find the competition? When is it happening and where?
The judging will start ourselves behind closed doors on the Monday. So we have a team of judges who will evaluate all the applicants. And the competition, the actual pitch, will start at 10:30 on a Tuesday morning. It's very easy to find us. It's on the main thoroughfare, right beside the Farmers Journal stand, and on the same line as the National Ploughing headquarters as well. So it's essentially in the main hub of the ploughing, Main Street ploughing.
Looking forward to it. I'll be there looking at the judging and feeling the competition developing with all the candidates there. Thanks very much, James.
No problem.
The Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Finally, let's go to the Country Living Desk to find out what's making the headlines in rural Ireland this week.
Hi, my name is Ciara Leahy, Consumer Editor in Irish Country Living, and I'm here this week with Mary Phelan, one of our journalists, who's writing about the latest developments in social farming. Mary, before we get into the ins and outs of the article, can you explain to us what exactly is social farming?
Well, Ciara, social farming is a unique way of providing a social support service for those in need of support, such as people with a learning disability, a mental health issue, or even something like an acquired brain injury. And it sees these participants engaging in normal everyday activities on farms, whether this is feeding the hens or dosing sheep. And, farmers might not describe working with animals as therapeutic, but that's exactly what it is for these people who are in need of support. But a more important element of social farming is that, the day on the farm will also involve, sitting down maybe at 11 o'clock with the farmer and his or her spouse for a cup of tea. And it's that chat and kind of banter around the kitchen table in the farming household. That's the social element of social farming, and that's the really crucial thing.
It's a really interesting concept. Does it work for people?
Ciara, it really does. It has many benefits, particularly in relation to mental health. It improves self-esteem and well-being. It restores feelings of worth. It boosts self-confidence. And the farmer can provide continuity and stability to the service user, which enhances their feelings of security and safety. And then the physical activity that comes with farm work can also distract from some of the user's symptoms. But I saw social farming firsthand myself up in County Louth on the farm of Matthew McGreehan. He's the chairman of Louth IFA. And I saw firsthand it's a nice day out, it's social, and something like, you know, jumping into the Jeep with the farmer and going off to the local mart or going and buying supplies in the local co-op store. There's such small things, but in terms of encouraging social interaction in the everyday life of somebody who needs a little bit more social interaction, I mean, it's really, really fantastic.
That's really interesting. And obviously, as you're saying, it's very beneficial for the person who's availing of the social farming concept or whatever. But what about for the farmers themselves? Is it beneficial to them?
Yeah, it's mutually beneficial, which again is relatively surprising. It can be a less stressful day on the farm for farmers because they're forced to kind of rein it back a bit. They can't be tearing around all over the place, maybe working at this crazy pace that they're used to. It, of course, has a serious feel-good factor because you're having a really positive impact on people's lives. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's also a very social thing for farmers. One farmer said there's always crack with the participants, whereas most days you'd be on your own.
Right, okay. And also they might give a bit of a hand, you know.
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's labour. It's someone to help, it's someone to open the gate, it's someone to hold the sheep when you're trying to dose them. I mean, farmers on a farm never underestimate the power of having 2 or 3 more people around to help with the jobs. Yeah,
and even having someone there for farm safety to keep an eye out or whatever, like, yeah.
Of course.
Mary, what's the story with social farming at the moment? Like, where does it stand? Are many people availing of it? You know, is it planned to progress?
Well, this is the thing, and I guess this is what we focus on in the article in Country Living this week. It's kind of looking at where it's at the moment. A pilot took part in 2014, and the farmer that I just referred to, Matthew McGreehan, was one of the people who participated in it. So the pilot saw 20 farms and 66 participants take part.
That's a good amount.
It's a very good number, and there was actually a lot more interest. They whittled down a significant number of applicants to those numbers. This pilot is widely acknowledged as having been a success. So now it's all kind of about the next step. The Department of Agriculture is supporting the development of social farming. It has enabled the opening of a support office at Leitrim Development Company, while social farming across boundaries is a project which has been set up by Matthew and other farmers who participated in the pilot to keep social farming on the agenda. So really what farmers want out of this, they want to see a permanent pay structure set up for social farming which incorporates payment to farmers for the service provided. And a number of conversations have taken place with many different levels of the HSC, not least a meeting at the very top level with Kathleen Lynch. All the meetings held with the HSC have been met with a very positive response, but there has not yet been a very concrete move to bring social farming to the next level, that next level being a permanent system that incorporates sustainable payment at a level that allows social farming to continue both for farmers and for government health providers. So work negotiations are ongoing to see this realised at a national level, while local arrangements with individual farms and services are being established in the interim to kind of very much keep it on the agenda. So that's where it stands at the moment. And the Social Farmers Across Boundaries group really believe that social farming is one of the best diversification options for farm families to make farms sustainable, to make succession sustainable, and also to provide a service that is required in the locality anyway.
A little done, a lot more to do, but it's certainly making progress.
Exactly, it's going in the right direction.
Okay, exactly. Well, it sounds like a great initiative, so hopefully it gathers more pace, and we'll certainly be keeping an eye on it in Irish Country Living. All the details are in this week's paper, and Mary, it's probably something you'll be following up in the future?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, there's a lot more to come with social farming, and I think for maybe farmers out there who would be interested in getting involved, keep an eye on my pages, and certainly buy Country Living this week, because it does kind of give a synopsis of where things are at the moment.
Great, thanks so much, Mary.
No problem.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast, online at farmersjournal.ie, on the Irish Farmers Journal app, and on iTunes every Thursday. Brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.